meeting so that they can be published online after the fact.
Thank you. So thank you, everybody, for coming to the District of Fort Hardy's regular council meeting of Tuesday, December 13th. We respectfully acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Quagga people. So Gary Kessler. May I have approval of the agenda as presented? Councillor Dorwood, Councillor Smith. All in favor? So moving on to adoption of the minutes. The minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held November 16th, 2022 for adoption. Councillor Dugas, Councillor Dorwood. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? Minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held November 22nd, 2022 for adoption. Councillor Tidbury, Councillor Dugas. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? Minutes of the regular council meeting held November 22nd, 2022 for adoption. Councillor Smith, Councillor Dorwood. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? Delegations, and we have Staff Sergeant Andrew Phillips of the Port Hardy RCMP with his quarterly update to council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, policing report for the second quarter, which is July through September. Our overall count is very, very similar to the first quarter. So 1133 in the first quarter and 1119 in the second quarter. So very, very similar. And most of the numbers are consistent as well. So assaults varied a little bit, going down from 49 to 37. Assaults with weapon went up a little bit, but not an alarming rate. Uttering threats is up a little bit, but again, not terribly alarming. Sex assaults, consistent across the board for the variations. In talks in public is down a little bit, but nothing of significance. So 101 down to 89. Breach of peace is consistent. Involving alcohol down a bit. Causing a disturbance is very consistent. And theft under 5,000 is up a little bit, but for the most part consistent. Our mischiefs, again, we use mischief to cover a lot of things, as has been discussed in many meetings as of recent. So there can be large fluctuations in the mischiefs based on that. But for the most part, of all the different variations, loss of enjoyment, bylaw, most of them are pretty consistent. False and abandoned 911s are down. Theft from motor vehicles up, but only by 2 and very low numbers. Shoplifting's consistent, down low numbers, 4 and 5. Missing persons up a little bit, and high risk missing persons is up. Those numbers are affected very dramatically by a lot of foster kids being in care that are the high risk individuals. If we have more foster kids in the area that are of the tendency to run away, then those numbers will flux quite high for the high risk. Unspecified assistance, a catch-all, so it's basically the same. It's 103 and 113. Mental health is up a little bit, but not alarmingly. We haven't had any mental health, like significant mental health calls of note in this quarter. All been pretty straightforward. The suicidals is the same thing. That's pretty much under the umbrella of Mental Health Act. And those would typically end in an apprehension and going to the doctor. So 10 to 12. The drugs side of it, we do have some projects going on. So next quarter is going to reflect some different numbers on this. But right now we've got, you know, for cocaine, we've got 2, only 1 this quarter. Possession was 1 and now 2 this quarter. You're gonna see some different numbers though next time, so. Impaired driving, sorry,
Should we ask questions as we go along or at the end?
whatever you like, it's your show.
Are those numbers going to change because of the law that came in? Or is it coming in for possession of certain amounts is?
Nope, the numbers are gonna change because we've had some projects going on.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'll hear about
that hope to come to fruition within the next quarter, though they were being engaged for the last 2 quarters, so. Yeah. Though to answer your question, I suspect that will have an impact. The inability to charge under a certain amount of illicit drugs is going to have an impact with that category of charge. However, you might see an increase somewhere else. You know, if somebody's smoking a crack pipe in front of a business or something, you might not see the possession charge against that offense, but you might see a mischief.
When does that come in? Is it January 31st?
January
Yes,
sometime.
yeah,
30,
31st, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Impaired driving. So we had pretty good quarter as far as impaired driving goes, like 17 recommended charges, consistent with the first quarter at 18. So that's all generated from roadblocks and the odd person calling in, so it's good. Skip down to violation tickets, consistent 42, 46. So that's just proactive patrol and enforcement in high crash areas. We had a few bad crashes in this quarter, so certainly a few things contributed to that. Weather a bit for sure, but yeah, some tragedies there in the community on the roadways. So that's about it as far as the report goes. If anything, any questions?
Any questions on the Staff Sergeant folks? Go ahead.
How do these numbers look year over year? Like, compared to the same quarter of 2021?
I can pull that up for you next time I come in and see.
I suppose that might be more applicable than over the previous quarter when the seasons and weather.
Yeah.
Those other.
No, so you'd like to see it comparative to the last year's date?
I don't know about everybody.
Sure, that's totally fine. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I mean, they don't flex a lot. Some of the things will, like our levels of intoxication and, you know, those things from year to year. Absolutely, you know, is one of the issues that we're struggling with right now, so. But yeah, I can bring a comparison of that previous year to date.
On that, is that downtown intoxication
Mhm.
that you're referring to?
Yeah.
So it's getting worse.
It's just a problem, like it's, I guess it is getting worse over the years. And the number of things have contributed to that. Places where these people, you know, used to be able to congregate. Some of the apartment buildings that have basically cleaned house and evicted everybody and all those folks that were kind of squatting in those situations for a long time are now ejected. And so they are out and more visible, where they were always there, but they were kind of hidden. Now we're seeing them. So certainly that has caused an increase, and yeah, there's lots of projects, us and the district trying to work towards solutions for that, but yeah, it's not an easy answer.
Very aware of that again.
Yeah.
That's been going on.
Yeah, no, thank you for the report. It's, and it's, I guess, maybe mildly encouraging that there's not great swings one way or the other.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but, I suppose a general decline would be good, but I just wanted to, later on in the meeting, we will be discussing, a recommendation about Spring Creek Park and the participation of the RCMP in that process, I think is really positive. And just that everybody is working towards common goals that are very difficult to attain is a challenge. Your report shows that it's a challenge and, yeah, and it's great to see the RCMP taking part in something that's not simply law enforcement, but trying to get ahead of the game. So thank you.
No, absolutely.
Counselor Jacobs?
Yep, through the mayor, yeah, just, thank you. Thank you for all the work you're doing and your staff. I mean, it's incredible what you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis and you're doing a great job and you didn't mention with regards to your staffing, where you're at right now, because I know that there were some people that had left, but
Yes.
where are you at?
Speak to that. So Corporal Martin Shiger has now promoted, so he is Sergeant Martin
Oh,
Shiger,
good.
and he is at his post in Bella Bella now. So we've gone to promotion on filling his position. So what'll happen with that is the post of the job is now closed, so all the submissions are in. The applicants will have to validate various competencies. So there'll be a validation committee that will sit. I've received several emails about that happening relatively soon. When that happens, some people will be weeded out, others will be progressed beyond to the next stage, and it will end up with a bunch of application packages coming to my desk. And then I'll go through them and make the selection from that. And then promotions unit gets it back and they do their thing. So, I mean, it takes a while though. That makes it sound like it'll be very quick. It's not gonna be very quick. It'll be at least a few months for sure. And then when we get the person named, they have to pass an isolated post medical because we're an isolated post in the view of the Treasury Board. So they have to pass extra medical with psychological and various other components. So that takes a while. And then once that's done, they enter into the actual transfer phase. So we won't have an actual corporal there for a while, but I do have some senior constables that are acting in the capacity. I lost one of my senior constables to promotion. He promoted to an Alberta corporal's position. So that's Larry Brady. A fantastic member, really a huge loss for us because he had a really big knowledge base, especially with drug enforcement. And he took the lead on many of the projects that we've been doing. So I'm going to be, training some of the other members that we've got. They've been following with him and mentoring and doing various different things to get their skill set, to enhance their skill set. So I'll be continuing with that and try to replace them as best that I can. They're gung ho if nothing else, right? They're a very good bunch. They're down to earth. And they definitely want what's right for the community. So it's good. We're lucky. We got a really good crew. Yeah. So I've got a girl coming to replace Larry from Port Alberta. Yeah. She's a young member. So she's in about 3.5 years service. Yeah. So yeah, we're not too bad as far as resources go. We go through a flux. It'll be a bit of a challenge, but we've gone through worse. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So any chance that you'll be able to promote within for the corporal's position?
No, it goes to out to the whole entire province for the first job advertisement. So I know I have interested parties within the detachment that have applied, but there'll be others as well from outside. So yeah.
So at this time of year, we know that there's more than just the downtown core that get intoxicated. Are there going to be any extra roadblocks or road checks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Constable Pearson is my main traffic guy. He arranges a lot of that stuff. He works with ICBC for various funding and campaigns. So there will be. Yeah, we're gonna have roadblocks out kicking around. for sure, to start seeing them popping up, and they've been doing a little bit of it, but you're gonna see more of that as the season progresses, so.
Seems a
That's what I'm
shame
used.
after so many years of trying to get the same message across about don't drink and drive. You can party, but don't drink and drive, and how many people still drink and drive.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Staff Sergeant.
Thank you.
If I don't see you, have a Merry Christmas.
Yes, you as well, and all of you.
Yeah.
For sure.
You're welcome to stay. Just saying.
But don't feel obligated.
I'm sure the rest of the meeting will be quick.
Well, that's sarcasm.
Good night.
Right. Okay, thank you. So moving on to business arising from the minutes and unfinished business. Council action item report for November 22nd for information. Any questions, comments? No. On to the Triport Minor Hockey Association request to change the arena netting from black to white. And we discussed it at the last meeting, but we wanted to bring it forward because there were some questions. So our CAO, Heather Nixon-Smith.
Yes, thank you, Randy. So I did reach out to the group, and so Tanya was able to get back to me. There was a bit of confusion, I guess, in the paper about what the difference between the two prices as well, so that kind of came up. So just to quell anything, they're not changing all of the netting. There's three sections of netting, and they're proposing to change the middle section, which is the spectator view. So that's why the price difference, the 7,000 versus 25,000. And so the other thing that has happened as well is they are now only looking for council approval because the materials are going to be covered through their costs, and they have some sponsors that are willing to contribute some money as well. So what they would be looking for is a 3-day window for the work to be done in order to be able to get the netting up and changed without interruptions.
Mhm.
Councilor Dorwin.
Does our Director of Recreation have any input?
Tanya?
Especially with regard to the 3 days, isn't it?
I was just wondering
That's
about the 3-day and when that
You're
3-day.
ready for ours to be over.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know when they plan to do it or when they hope?
We would have to coordinate it with our schedule.
Mhm.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, it may not end up happening until the March shutdown potentially. But if we can coordinate it within the current schedule that we have, I don't think that we'll be postponing anything that's currently scheduled. So if I speak on behalf of at this point in time, we wouldn't just go and start moving around things just to change over the netting, because the value is to the people using the recreation facility.
Okay,
Are
Councilor-
there any championships or any big tournaments planned for this season? This ice?
I see, Tanya.
So I can jump in here. Yeah, so because I haven't had any conversations with the installer, the netting installer, I'm not really sure, what's all involved in the process and how long it will take. I understand it could take 3 days, and that's fine. But I'd like to have more of a conversation with the installer to get more of a sense of what's all involved. We do have a very busy sponsorship skate schedule coming up between December 19th and December 30th. So we do have back-to-back skates, free skates that I would like to avoid impacting if at all possible. There are no weekend tournaments, so weekend would be an ideal time, for that work to be completed. Ideally, it would be nice to get this netting done before the spring break hockey camp, because once we finish off the season, we'll be right into our 2 weeks of hockey camp. So that would be a time that we wouldn't be able to shut down for that. So I'll need more information, and we'll do our best to work around, the hockey schedule and not impact any users.
Make a motion to approve.
So moved by Councilor Dorwin, seconded by Councilor Smith. Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, from the Mount Wellington Health Network, the manager of health services and the practice lead mental health and substance abuse Island Health from our committee of the whole requested council for discussion. So, they had put forward a request to support the installation of multiple permanent structures or shelters in Sting Creek Park or an alternate appropriate location to allow the continued delivery of the Safer Place to Be project. So we have, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we've had this discussion before, and I'm okay with going ahead with it. It would be a little bit, I think, more beneficial to know where we're talking about to begin with, as opposed to just sort of saying, well, either here or there. You know, I think, but I say that hesitantly because I don't want to hold things up. But if there's a sense, and maybe Heather knows perhaps a little bit better, if there's a sense of where we're looking at this point. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh, that's okay, Mayor, is that okay?
Sure.
So I think from the perspective, we'd have to find a flat location. So there's a couple of things for council to consider. They did buy one wooden structure, which is less than 10 by 10, which doesn't trigger a building permit. We hesitated in putting it up for a couple of reasons. The hesitation was around the fact that we don't have a lot of level ground in Sting Creek, so there's a couple of issues there with installation. The other issue is that we'd be putting it, are we putting it without a cement pad? If we put a cement pad down, that'll help to alleviate any of the issues with the erosion of the ground around it. Be able to level it out a little bit better, make it more secure. But putting in a cement pad, as we know, is not cheap. Between $10,000 and $20,000 is typically the going rate. So who is going to bear that cost? And then the other issue that was brought up as a concern was, whether or not it would be turned into a permanent structure in terms of somebody maybe turning it into a shelter or maybe starting a fire or, those kind of things. Now, in terms of location, they currently had the one location, which is slightly on a decline going towards the creek itself, which is where they had the tent originally, and then they had one kind of up top. And those were the levelest bits of ground that we would have been able to find in Sting Creek. So I think that from the perspective of the users, those would be the two locations that they would be kind of looking at that would be the easiest for us to put it in there. But just in terms of, council's consideration with respect to it, and I'm not by any way, shape or form saying a yes or a no from administration's point of view. It's just that you don't want to just go and put something up and not have the supports, like something like cement, for us to hose down easily in order to keep it clean and sanitary for the users that will be using it. So just some things to consider.
So Brian, or Councillor Texma, I do have you on the list. I just wanted to mention, we do have someone on staff who happens to have his crime prevention through environmental design certification. And Sting Creek is what we use as a pilot project location, but that might not be the best location. And we've had this conversation and we've had different people come to us with concerns about having it in that particular location. And so this motion or this request is that it's Sting Creek Park or an alternate appropriate location. So we could look at using our staff to find out if that's the most appropriate location. Just throwing that out as part of the conversation. Councillor Texma?
Yeah, so that's a big part of what my questions were going to be, and kind of reiterating what Councillor Robertson was saying is more knowing on what the location is. I'm in 100% agreement that permanent shelters for Safe Place is very much so needed, but I do not believe that Sting Creek Park is the place for it, and that's my opinion. I would like to know, what some alternate locations would be, given there are locations around vacant property, stuff like that. So just some more kind of information on what's available other than Sting Creek Park, because I just don't believe it's the greatest place for it.
Councillor Robertson?
Yeah, I don't want to add to people's workload, but is it possible to get some indication of a report on that? Sorry,
Everybody thinks it.
I don't know, I'm just looking over there.
If council needs more information, then we staff will provide more information for sure.
Councillor Dorwood?
I would, I'm glad that we did the pilot project. I think it gave us a lot of feedback and it gave those folks working with them a lot of feedback and a lot of opportunity to see what worked, but I don't think it actually had the desired effect that I thought we would see at least, and for the feedback I'm getting from the community. So particularly not knowing, permanent structures in our park that are designed for these people that unfortunately don't have homes. I just can't buy that. Not as a permanent fixture. And also, not knowing the design of them, how permanent are they? Are they semi-permanent, permanent? But even so, I don't think. But what I would like to see is Island Health find possibly look at that location on Gray Street that is privately owned right now, that is another hangout for several of the groups of the street people that we have, and with hopes that maybe they can use it as the safer place to be for now, but also get some housing or rehabilitation facility or the type of long-term solutions that are needed to help with the problem. So I'd like to see Island Health probably buy a piece of property that is more suitable than Snake Creek Park. And I know that's not a fast thing, but
Yeah.
a permanent structure in Snake Creek Park just doesn't sit well with me at all.
Councillor Dugan?
Yeah, through the mayor, we did have a meeting today, and I'm sure if the mayor's gonna talk about that a little bit. We had a meeting with businesses today to talk about this situation. And I think that what came up in the meeting it's something that we all know about. We're dealing with the situation here of a social gathering place, basically, for them. But then again, we also have issues with regards to housing, right? So they're two separate issues. But they sort of, they combine because there are situations there where the people there don't have actually a place to go and live. But they are gathering during the day. And there are a number of other municipalities in different places in the province that have found places for them to socially gather in a safe place. And that's basically what this pilot project, and then it gave an opportunity for the Island Health to come there, boots on the ground kind of thing, right? Go to see them rather than them going to them. And it worked. I think it did. It definitely, it opened up that case, but it doesn't deal with the housing issue. But I think in a combination of it, maybe that's something that we gotta look at. But I think that what we're trying to do here with this, with regards to this motion is to say, let's carry on with the process, right? Let's carry on with the process. We don't know exactly what that's going to be the end result is, but we need to have a motion to say, okay, we did this. I think it's valid. I think we should look at an alternative, other alternatives, how to deal with it. But we're not going to just say, okay, we did the pilot plant. Now we're going to drop the issue. I think this is basically give a direction to say, let's carry on with this. We don't really have the actual location yet, but we're gonna work on it to try to find something that's gonna work for everybody in the community. That's my 2 pence.
Councillor Robertson and then Councillor Tidbury.
Yeah, no, sorry if I wasn't understood. That's what I meant when I was asking for some more, just on some possibilities. It wasn't to say, yeah, I want to start. I absolutely want to see this process go forward. And it's how, one way or the other, and you're right about housing, it's how we're gonna deal with the situation that's a challenge. And again, I want to go forward with it. I just need more information. And I would hate for that to hold up the process, but I think some clarity is also with going forward. Process of thing.
Councillor Tidbury and then our
Okay.
corporate officer.
Yeah, the request that you're asking for is states in Stink Creek Park or alternatives. You need to eliminate the Stink Creek Park because I'm not in favor of Stink Creek Park. It's and I would throw it back in Viha's ball to come up with another location.
Thank you. The corporate officer, Blackwell?
This is gonna be your Director of Development Services now talking.
Director of Development Services.
Yeah. So I've been down this road many times before, and I would. To be trite, I would say, be careful be careful of which you wish or ask for. I would move into this very carefully and with all the information. That is the bedrock for a decision that will be more palatable than ones that are not. I'll give you a case in point. City of Brampton / North Carrollton, that where they come together. They have three schools. And within 4 blocks, and within that radius, they have homeless shelter, a safe injection site, and various other associated things. It's a complete gong show. And Island Health was the one that spearheaded the drug exchange thing. So it went from bad to worse because they were asked to find a site. So I would recommend that as much, regardless of how much time it takes, and that it would be wise for you to have a complete and full analysis of optimal sites based on certain criteria, not just because they happen to be available or somebody talked to somebody and you got what you got and you gotta live with it. I would create as I say, a carefully constructed scaffolding around the issue that will inform your decision and allow you to optimize your decision based on all of the information relative to public safety, not just for the safety of the people using it, potential liability that it might attract, maintenance obligations, who's responsible for it, are there open and closed hours, does there need to be lighting, how much lighting, who pays for the lighting, on and on and on.
Who pays for that study?
Well, it'd have to be us, me.
Yeah.
Not pays for it, but I'd have to.
So is there funding from, the Department of Mental Health and Addictions? Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions or
So
all that?
our Director of Development Services has that certification to do that. Whether he has that time in his job is another story, but perhaps that could be, if we get a situational table set up, perhaps that could be first on the list of the situational table, because then we could ask for additional money through that program. However, that does mean it kind of leaves it lingering for a while. CAO Nelson Smith.
Coming up later in the agenda is also the Reddit grant, which is in there, which also has a community living component that we haven't quite finalized what that would look like. But it could be the planning for that exact report that he's talking about doing that, all of that work. So in terms of going forward, when we get to that section of the agenda, I would direct council to put a bit of emphasis on that as well, because while it's economic development in terms of the funding, economic development is about building a safer community for the downtown in order to support economic development. So this would all fit in together. We have a call actually tomorrow with the grant funding opportunity. So any of those ideas I'll be taking from this evening to the funder tomorrow to make sure that they can test it to make sure before we submit the application.
That's right.
I would move, looking for a seconder, that we refer this to staff, request to staff with requests that some areas be identified with the rationale for those choices.
The seconder.
I'll second.
Councillor Smith, sorry, you weren't.
No.
Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? Take care. Thank you. Okay, we have no new business. Now we get into the correspondence, and we have a lot of correspondence. So the first correspondence is a Destination BC grant writing program. And it's for information and, does anyone have any questions, comments? I found it very difficult to, read it, actually, the way it was written, but, I'm sure that, our Destination BC people are aware of it and know what they have to do to, get a grant writer, if they, want a grant writer. Okay, so on to the next one, from Colin Kozma, Land Use Forester Sustainability, Molly Hudson, Director of Sustainability, and Ross McCleaver, Director Real Estate Development from Mosaic. Congratulations and introduction for information.
They're asking if we want to meet with them too, so.
Mhm.
Yes, so do we want to have a meeting? Usually they do a meeting with us once a year, so.
Mhm.
So do we want to send a request for a meeting? Sure.
If that's what they want, I mean, if they weren't just being polite.
It's always interesting to know what people are doing in the area, so
I don't know how much Mosaic actually has up here, but I think
not much, but they do have a little bit. They keep reaching out to us too, so maybe they're hoping to get more.
just coming up in another letter.
So, another letter from Shaw Communications, and I'm sorry, I'm not gonna try and pronounce, the person's name. But, to the mayor and council again for information. From Shay Draper, General Manager, Vancouver Island TELUS, congratulations and introduction to TELUS, again for information. And stop me if you want to, discuss anything. From the Honorable Harjit Sajjan, Minister, International Development and Minister responsible for Pacific Economic Development Agency of Canada. Congratulations and introduction. So just for the Pacific Economic Development Agency, that's a new agency that's taking care of the Western Economic Development. So I'm sure we'll hear more.
Yeah, it's the agency that's funding the Community Futures Operations Scheme developments as well.
Yeah.
Where it used to come from Western Economic Diversification, it comes from this now.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this will be, and it's much more directed to the coast too, so we
Mhm.
should have, hopefully a lot more action happening here.
Yep.
Councilor Dugas,
Just to the mayor, they're opening an office in Campbell River, is that correct?
at the Economic Development Forum we were at, I think that's what they said. So I suspect we're gonna hear more from them as they get
We
better set up.
Yeah, it's sort of, they were talking about that, about, I was gonna open up soon, but I didn't quite sure if they had their office set up yet or not, or they're just still in the process then, okay. You know, wanna go see them when they get open.
Or maybe they'll want to do a presentation.
I hope so,
Yes.
thank you.
From the Honorable Nathan Cullen, Minister of Municipal Affairs, about the BCM Convention of 2022, where we went and talked to him about the municipal affairs in our town. And on Friday, the mayor or delegate or designate will be meeting with the new Minister of Affairs. So it's all brand new. Anyways, for information. Again, from our UBCM 2022 convention, the Honorable Sheila Malcolmson, Minister of Mental Health and Addictions. And for information, that's a follow-up, but as well, she listed all the MHSU services that we have in the area. Most of us know what all of them are anyways, but it was nice of her to send that. From Nayleen Mayhew, Deputy Minister, Tourism, Arts, Culture, and Sport, from the UBCM 2022 convention for information. From Megan Will, Executive Director, Homelessness Policy and Partnership Branch, Attorney General and Minister responsible for housing, from our 2022 delegation meeting with them. Did you put your hand up?
I did.
Councillor Robertson?
So she does actually, point out something that we have been pursuing, and I think we need to continue in terms of, although from a different perspective, we've been looking at Crown Land as a
Mhm.
potential site for developing, ourselves, and that's a zillion years in the future, hopefully not that far. But she's also drawing our attention to, if you're looking to use available Crown land, which is the ministry supporting that, and they do, that there is a process identified there with a sponsored Crown grant and a potential rental. And it's just, I think some of these are worth some closer consideration as we look at some different ministry plots of land in the town. So, and then she does suggest that we contact Zachary May from, well, this is with another issue too, but with the building standards as well. So I got ahead of myself. So I think we should look at Crown Land and pursuing some support from the province with Crown Land. We're doing it, and this is possibly one other avenue. And then we did talk about some of the challenges of contracting up in this part of the world and having contractors, and it probably might be worth following up with the person that they've identified as well.
Would you like direction to staff to contact Zachary May?
Well, I think probably following up on some of them with the contacting the buildings, that person, and I think we are looking at Crown Land and continuing that with the sponsored Crown grant, sponsored Crown grant. Crown Land grant, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so I just wanted to get my ducks in there.
Which is, and it is interesting that
Yeah.
the idea about the more information about the sponsored Crown Grant program.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. From James Carroll, RFPs, Stewardship Forester and Marie Eslin, Stucci Forester, North Island Central Coast Natural Resource District, Ministry of Forests, about the North Island TSR public discussion paper review and comment. So they are looking for comments on it and feedback. It's Counselor Robertson.
Yeah, we've been waiting for this for a very long time. Because what this does is it identifies the whole timber supply review area and identifies what's there, what's available, what's not available. This, I think, and I believe we need to attend the review process, and certainly attend with people from community forest. Because that's one of the ways, before anything can happen with community forest, we've been talking to ministry about the community forest and about their annual cut. And before anything can happen there, this TSA has to be, timber supply review has to be completed. So as we see those reviews, I think the people, foresters with the community forest, will have an understanding, and I believe we definitely do need to follow up to review it.
Mr. Durwood?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. It's my suggestion exactly. Also to those councillors that are attending the Truck Locker Association conference in January in Vancouver, please come back with any information from there that would be applicable to this. I mean, it's super important to us.
Mhm.
So I know you will. But pay extra attention to this portion of the subject.
John will poke the bear.
Well,
Thank you.
Counselor Dugas, are you not going as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the two of you.
Sorry, Mayor.
So, but as well.
Some other mammal to poke.
But I think it's really important for all council to have a look at this and send in comments. So that they know how we are, yeah.
Continue the discussion with me.
And community force as well, yeah. Councilor Dorman?
I wonder if we should also, whether it's all of us as a group or in there, but meet with, you know, a variety of tenure holders from the small to the big. So, you know, not just the big tenure holders like Western and Mosaic, but some of the smaller contractors that operate in our area and just see what their concerns are with regard to it. I mean, they're the ones that it really impacts and they will, you know, we could read through it or whatever, but they're gonna understand more of how that's going to impact them.
And the local bands as well.
Yeah, exactly. They're tenure holders as well. So, yeah, I think whether it's too many parties to coordinate all at once, but we need to get their feedback one way or another, I think, before, so we can make sure we get it. Or that they're submitting it separately or something like that, but to make sure they're aware of it, just in case they're.
So do we have a list, of all the tenure holders in the area for, that we would, you know, if we went with what Councilor Dora was saying about expressing, or do we want to speak on behalf of all the tenure holders? Or do we want to send this to all of them to make sure they've got it? Because I don't know if I feel really comfortable about speaking on behalf of,
Just hearing their concern.
we could hear their concerns, but,
Mhm.
I mean, it does say, sorry,
I was
it
gonna-
says forest licensees and the public and First Nations were all invited to review and provide comments already, but
Mhm.
We can obtain a list.
okay, and then,
Mhm.
okay, thanks.
So
Councilor-
just through the mayor, yeah, this is a regional issue. And so this is something that should be also brought up to the attention of the Mount Washington Regional District with regards to the group. And it should be looked at accordingly from them to be sort of spearheading this with regards to the comments from our region. And I think that, the mayor and myself it's our obligation to make sure that the RD is doing what they're supposed to be doing. So we will, hopefully together we'll bring that to their attention.
All right, item number 11, from Tim Chester, Secretary, North Island Community Forest Cemetery Partnership with Director Term Renewal of Ione Brown. So the recommendation, that's the council endorsement. The recommendation from the NICFLP, the Board of Directors, to appoint Ione Brown as the Director at Large for a 3-year term commencing January 1st, 2023.
I'll make that motion.
Councilor Robertson.
And I'll
Councilor
second.
Digger.
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Oh, you were too late. That all these hands went up before I.
Oh,
Your
there you
hands.
go.
Yeah, time delay. Any comments? Councilor
Just
Diaz.
just to make one comment that, in my past job as the mayor and having the opportunity to work with that board for the last 4 years, they do a terrific job for us. And, I'd just like to compliment them, but not only that, but compliment Ione because she was the chair for that group for a number of years now. She's done an awesome job. And for her to put her name forward for another 3 years, I think that's awesome. So I think that it would be fitting. I don't know. It's gonna come up obviously, but we voted on it, but I just give her a letter of thank you and thank you for putting your name forward for another 3 years. I think that's awesome. Very fortunate to have people like that on that committee. Yeah. Very fortunate.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 12, the Rotary Club of Port Hardy, about the Rotary Christmas cheer float parade route authorization.
Is there a conflict here?
So we have a letter from Alphonse for our, about the Rotary Christmas cheer float, and as a council, we need to approve the parade route authorization. So I know that CAO, okay. First, Counselor Smith, second, Counselor Tidbury, discussion, CAO, Counselor Smith.
Just that, unfortunately, for those of you who are online, you don't have the revised map. So, the people of Bay Road will be very happy to hear that the, Torrey's Beach portion will start at the airport inn. And then it will also make its way through the, Fort Rupert Village. Accommodate, some requests that have come in, so, the map is sitting here and, I believe that the rodeo will probably publishing it on their website. Other than that, everything else within town and the,
And so just so you know that there has been comments in Beaver Harbor Trailer Park about why isn't it going through the trailer park? They have put really big boulders on certain areas, so the vehicle will not be able to get around the corners, so it's very challenging. So that's why. And I've also forewarned some of the organizers that in the back east or the Fort Rupert Village, they have really big speed bumps now, so they have to be very careful going in because the speed bumps are larger than they were before. So they have to hold on tight when they go through there.
It bounced off.
So we have a motion on the floor, we have first and seconder. Do we have any other comments or questions?
And just that I'm so glad they're doing this for the community, you know, with our lack of events, that this is a pretty special one that I think everyone really appreciates. The music and Santa and the lights and yeah, so just expressing appreciation.
Yes, absolutely. I am kind of bummed. I'm not going to be here for it, but my lights will be on. So any other comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to committee reports. We have the draft minutes of the Port Hardy Bear Smart Committee held on November 9th for information. Counselor Smith. All good?
All good.
The draft minutes of the Park Recreation Arts and Culture Committee held on November 16th, 2022.
I just point out that Tammy, who was here tonight, made a presentation on the bike pump track. And it was well received, and it's been referred to staff for a report back in January that will come to the committee of the whole. And also an acknowledgement of I can't remember the Cape Scott Wind Farm that's sponsoring a lot or all of the ice rentals this year. And so just a thank you and shout out to them for stepping forward and doing that.
So just on further on the sponsorship, and maybe our director
Penny,
of recreation can talk about all the sponsorships that are happening from now until after Christmas.
I'd love to, yeah. So just to clarify, the overwhelming sponsor that came in for it was over $2,000. That was for all of our movie sponsors. So we've had movies once a month now held in the Civic Center, and Cape Scott Wind LP Cape Scott Wind LP. They sponsored all of those movie rentals. We've had more sponsors this year than last year. I'm just getting all of the finalized numbers coming in and the amounts coming in still. But yeah, starting December 19th right through until December 30th, every weekday, Monday to Friday, we have from morning until evening, back-to-back free sponsor skates. So it's been very, very well received. We had a fantastic Winter Wonderland skate on Sunday with 4 sponsors: Moe, Cape Scott Wind Farm LP, K&K Electric and Sporty Bar and Grill. And thanks to their sponsorship, we were able to offer free snacks and goodies. And yeah, and it was just a very wonderful event with 260 people that came out and enjoyed that. And we're cleaning up Winter Wonderland, and we're preparing for our first New Year's Eve family event. This was canceled last year due to COVID, but we have lots of people registered already, and we have sponsors lined up for our New Year's Eve event, and that's going to be in the arena on December 31st from 5 p.m. till 7 p.m. Lots of great activities and skating. A DJ will be there, and a balloon drop at 6:45 p.m. So again, thanks to all the sponsors and the people who are supporting our first ever winter or New Year's Eve family event. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. I have to say that if he was here or if he's online, Eddie LaGrosse has always pushed to have a New Year's Eve family event. So I'm sure he'll be thrilled that it's happening. It might be happening a bit later than he wanted it in the years, but he's always been an avid supporter of it. So, and I'm sure there's other community members that have always wanted this. So thank you for doing it. Moving on, draft minutes of the Operations Services Committee meeting held November 21st, 2022 for information. Any comments?
There's just one little typo. On H, committee member reports, the crosswalk is at Eagle West.
My crosswalk. Yes.
So it's under the discussion,
Yes, just as a correction, not to,
just a correction.
I don't think anything else too exciting in there,
And these are draft minutes anyway,
Yeah.
so they'll be approved.
so they'll be right.
Yeah. Draft minutes of the Tourism Advisory Committee meeting held November 21st, 2022. For information, any Councilor Dugas?
Just through the mayor, I noticed that in that, just let me have a look here for a second. It mentioned with regards to who was attending the meeting, and I didn't see Elizabeth on there yet. She did a report. So I was wondering why she wasn't on there as present.
Good catch.
Great stuff, right?
Thank you, Councilor Dugas.
Thank you, Mayor.
Draft minutes of the Emergency Planning Committee meeting held November 28th, 2022. For information. Comments, questions? All right, staff reports. Finance Department, October 2022, the check and EFT listing report for information. Any comments, questions? Finance Department, November 2022, check and EFT listing report for information. Comments, questions? Ross Blackwell, Director of Corporate and Development Service, about our council meeting schedule 2023 for discussion. Councilor Dorwood has a question.
Well, yes, the LGLA meeting is February 14th, or is it on, do we know?
It starts on the 15th, and so the likelihood that councillors will have to travel, and I apologize for not going through the chair. So the recommendation that I would propose is that we either do one of two things. We either cancel the 14th meeting, if we normally go to the UCM week, and you will notice that we're not being bumped as a result of UCM this coming year. So we're actually having one more meeting in 2023 than we normally have. So if we took one away, it would be consistent. Because alternatively, if we need to have a special meeting, you can always call a special meeting as per our procedure by law. Or the other option would be to just change the date to the 13th, and then that would allow everybody the ability to travel on the 14th. Move the meeting to the Monday rather than Tuesday. Your choice, your pleasure.
So, Counselor Durwood,
I propose that we skip it, and if we need one, we'll have one. Like, obviously not that day, but
yeah,
special meeting.
I'll second. Kind of like skip the dishes.
any comments? Suggestions? Did you hear it okay? Yeah. All right, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, item number 4. From Heather Nelson Smith, our CAO, the legal expense policy for council members.
What about the calendar? Is that follow
Well,
up to the same thing?
It follows under the same thing, so, the calendar would be, that it would be as proposed, but with them not having the 14th.
Yeah, no, I just, the calendar is a separate sheet. That's- Meeting. It's all committee calendar.
Oh, the council committee calendar. Do we need to have a separate motion on the council committee?
Just for information.
Oh, thank you. So going on, there's a recommendation that the council policy CP 1.14 legal expense policy for council be approved as presented. Councilor Robertson, would you like to discuss this?
Put my hand up. Yes, I would. To begin with, it's entitled legal expense policy, but what it's talking about is conflict of interest legal expense policy. So it's, it's not just legal expenses. There's a number, I think it should be more clear that it's conflict of interest legal expenses, because there's a number of legal expenses that could arise that a counselor would be subject to, or anyway, they could be outside that, but secondly, so this, I have a few concerns with this. It comes from my situation, full disclosure, where, and the discussion of the low pressure pumps, and at one point, and out at the beach, and we live in a house that has one of those pumps. At one point, and the reason why I'm mentioning this is that it was a reaction. I was informed that a legal opinion had been obtained that said that I was in conflict of interest and could not sit in on any of those discussions. People in the neighborhood are concerned about it. There's an issue out there. And so for a good deal of the time in those discussions, I was not able to sit through them because I was told there was a conflict of interest decision that had an impact on my situation. Subsequent to that, in the last election cycle, because of that opinion, I went and sought one. There was a suggestion that perhaps I wasn't. So I went and sought a legal opinion from a local government lawyer in Victoria, and the reason, and it indicated that, in fact, because I held an interest in common with other residences out there, I was not in conflict. And subsequent to that, actually just a few days subsequent to that, there was a legal decision on a councillor in Vancouver who was in the same situation that went to court, and he was found not to have a conflict because he held a common interest with other people, an interest that was in common. And so So the reason why I mentioned that is that the cost of the legal opinion I sought, which I asked and council agreed to at that point, to expense, was greater than the $1,000. Lawyers aren't cheap these days. And that the reason that I sought it is because I was told, although I never saw, that there was an existing conflict of interest decision out there, opinion out there. Other than that, because otherwise I wouldn't have, because my understanding, and I stand to be corrected on this, and people who know it better than I am, that conflict of interest is something that one declares, that a councillor declares. And that you don't necessarily need a legal opinion to have it. You declare it or you don't declare it. The reason why I sought it out was because one was done on my behalf without my knowledge of it, of being done. So that's why I did it. So I'm not 100% sure this is reflective of that situation, and nor is it does it cover everything, particularly where a councillor is responsible for declaring their own conflict of interest. I think it needs some more work.
Our CAO, Vanessa Smith.
So without looking at a specific instance, I have somebody barking down. I apologize. But without looking at the specifics of that particular one, so typically what happens is in the community charter, you declare conflict of interest, you remove yourself from the meeting. Where a councillor can get a legal opinion to allow themselves to come back into the meeting is on the onus of the councillor to do that on their mayor, councillor, board member, whoever happens to be. They're supposed to seek it independent of any legal firms that we use, so the cost is then borne by that councillor. In some places, there are policies that are written where it's only the councillor is going to pay for it and the municipality will not. The direction that I was given following the incidents that we had earlier last year was that we develop a policy so that there is the flexibility for a councillor to obtain that said legal advice to determine whether or not, if they disagree with whether or not they're in a conflict, or then later find out after they've declared a conflict, if they are able to come back into the room, that the municipality would then cover the cost and that there be some funds set aside. At that time, council had said about $1,000 at that point, so that's why the policy is in front of you this way.
Councillor Gilbert.
May I ask how much your legal opinion cost? I don't know if that's a fair question.
Yeah, it's about $1,200, so $1,200, $1,500. So Heather may know.
I think so, yeah, $1,250.
Just propose that move this forward, changing it to 1,500. Is there any other work that you've got for me differently? No, just the number.
No, just the number, and the name that it's not talking about just legal expenses, it's with relation to conflict of interest.
The mayor and council, conflict of interest, legal expense policy.
Sure.
Sure, that's all part of my motion.
Yeah, there's,
It is. So Councillor Dugas.
yeah, I was just curious of what Councilor Darwood would mention with regards to where did they come up with the figure of $1,000? That's all I was wondering about.
It was probably last year and now it's.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes up.
Already. And that's what it was. It was discussed last year and then we said around that money.
Yeah.
Councillor Smith.
I was just gonna second the motion.
Okay, so do we need to wait for the CAO to come back or can we move?
You can go ahead and call the question.
Okay, so the motion is that council approve the council policy CP 1.14, changing the name to conflict of interest legal expense policy with and bumping up the amount to $1,500.
I just had one more thought. And it's too late now that the question's been called, I don't know, but should we cap the frequency or annual amount or the total amount for the board or like, what about like an aggregate cap?
Corporate officer,
Slash.
development,
WCA.
deputy CAO.
So my answer to that question, to review to Councillor Dorwood, would be, how frequently is this an issue?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm assuming it's very infrequent.
Very infrequent, and the reality is, no one's forced to seek a legal opinion.
Right.
Yeah, as Councillor Robertson said, I've sat in on many council meetings where people are absolutely in conflict of interest. Shockingly, they don't say anything. People are nudging them. It's like, nope, on me to decide, I'm not moving. And they don't, and it's not just here or there, it happens frequently. And that's an egregious situation. I've never seen it. I see people get up and down all the time declaring conflict of interest here. In my opinion, I've never seen any conflict of interest. So I think the probability, I've been here for 2 years now, probability of a conflict is low, and the frequency of it, i.e. more than once in a year, is so low that it doesn't warrant it.
We'll just leave it then. My motion stands.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thanks. So,
Thank you for putting it off until it's.
I'm wondering if we should wait for item 5 for NCAO to come back, and there she comes back. So item 5, is about situation tables, a model for community safety and well-being in BC. So the recommendation that the district applies to the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General to activate a situation table in Port Hardy. So our CAO, Heather Nelson-Smith, would you like to speak to this?
I think that, well, I probably mentioned it before to council, but just for everybody else. So the situational table, we had been advocating for a number of years now for the mental health card. And while we were meeting with the ministry responsible for public health, public safety and Solicitor General, he kind of steered our way into the situational table. So there's about 31 situational tables in BC, and they're comprised of basically your committee is similar to the committee structure that we currently have on Fridays, where we have mental health and addictions, we have RCMP, we have BC Ambulance, we have First Nations. We could have social services, we have Salvation Army, we have all of these agencies that are coming together to look at a global issue. What a situational table does is it takes those same people, and that includes Ministry of Child and Family Development, and actually deals with case files directly from the RCMP. So the RCMP would actually bring a specific case file forward to the group. The group would then allocate that. So one of the main concerns that the RCMP gets right now, which is why we're advocating so hard for the mental health card, is because about 43% of their call volume is related to mental health occurrences. And so that's not what they're equipped to deal with. So trying to find other agencies to be able to take on these files has actually resulted in the success of the rehabilitation of those files. So in 2021, so there's 31 situational tables in BC currently right now. Approximately 26% of the case files that were brought forward by the RCMP were related to other agencies, and 92% of those 26% were actually resolved by other agencies rather than it being the RCMP or the courts. And so in respect to Port Hardy, when we had our discussion with the ministry, they said we're a candidate for sure. We're already set up. We already have a robust team that's already working together. So we've actually already kind of started our situational table already. The implementation of it is actually fully funded. So it's about $40,000 contribution. 25,000 of that is a consultant that they appoint that trains us on how to deal with the situational table and get us up and running. And then about $20,000 in admin support. So that's computers, staff time, et cetera, in order to get going. The district's responsibility would be the coordination of it and the allocation of funds. And also part of it is the statistics gathering. So we're not just meeting, we actually have statistical information that we have to collect and then give back to the province in order to satisfy that funding. And then by creating this opportunity for us to address individual case files, we could actually, the full intention of it is to stop that bigger problem that we're currently trying to address, which has multiple facets, different arms. There's all sorts of things going on there. So the hope is that you resolve this one file so that you don't continue to keep trickling down into the bigger issue. So with that being said, if we were to submit an application this month, we would know early in the year whether or not we had the funding. We could be training as early as February in order to get us going and get us implemented.
Excellent. So any questions?
I'll make the motion as presented. That the district applies to the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General to activate a situation taking order.
Thank you. Councillor Smith seconded. Any other comments or questions? So I just want to make one comment. It's that we've mentioned it to a couple of agencies and they have already said, we're on board. Let us know when it's going and we'll be attending. So that's so encouraging when you have agencies that are super busy and are understaffed saying, we'll be coming to the table. It's very encouraging. So, yeah. You gotta take a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks. All right. Patty Smedley and Carly Haggett, the Economic Development and Recovery Officers, the report on the 2022 collaboration between the Port Hardy Farmers and Artisans Market, Port Hardy Recreation, and the District of Port Hardy Creation Station for information.
Anybody has?
So it's just for information, but just want to let everybody know that if you haven't, or if you hadn't gone down there during any of the farmers market and seeing the collaboration going on and the number of people going on, it was pretty amazing and pretty cool.
We did a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Enhancement.
Okay. Heather Nelson Smith, CAO, the Rural Economic Diversification Infrastructure Program. The recommendation that the district applies to the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program under the Economic Diversification Program. Two programs there. For up to $100,000 towards further planning and implementation of programs that support economic development and community. CAO Nelson Smith.
Sure. So I apologize for, it's gonna seem as though we're still putting it all together. So we got the funding announcement on November the 15th. Subsequently, about 8 days ago, we sat on our first call to kind of refine exactly what the funding opportunity is. So this is a multi-year program as well. So this is the first intake. They are looking to expense money with notification before the end of March because they want it to come out of this fiscal year. So that's why the quick turnaround. We have already begged for extensions. We're not getting them. So basically what we've done is we've looked at everything that we've identified in the last year as being things that we'd like to support, things that have been successful, things that we've tried to implement, but unfortunately weren't able to get off the ground. So that being the business audits, so that was one where both Patty and Carly did a presentation on looking at the businesses within the community, getting them SEO certified, teaching them how to, market on their website, how to get themselves on a Google search, trying to optimize their abilities to be able to be more digital, but not to mention the fact that also just giving them a little bit more exposure and a bit of a leg up. We've currently been running those programs with nonprofits to test them out and kind of refine them. And so they've got a bit of a proposal in there as well for that. The other one is that, skip it over to another page, is downtown revitalization planning. So there's been some discussion through Community Futures, nothing is written in stone at this point in time, but the potential of a facade program for the downtown, whether or not we do night markets. There's been some discussion about, some ideas about doing a waterfront market, but this is all still in the planning phase. So we'd like to continue with the planning on those programs. supporting the Port Hardy Artisans Market, Farmers and Artisans Market. So you read the report already, so we saw how great that was, but we need capacity in order to support that. So there's a proposal in there to include that as well. Building a healthier community. So that's where I mentioned that we should be looking towards that particular planning with respect to Ross helping out with that identification, is we could beef up that budget a little bit more to fit within the $100,000, because we have about $17,000 to play with still. So we could beef that up a little bit more and put in some more planning and development in that in order to support the downtown. The Adopt a Street program, which has been really successful, and we've even had, we're not fully subscribed, but we've had people asking to do other streets other than the ones that were necessarily identified. So we've got some really good participation in that and a good collaboration with our Public Works Department. And then the other one that's kind of still hanging, we have a meeting tomorrow, is trying to do some support with the Shop Local campaign. So originally the chamber had received about $60,000 in order to do the Shop Local program. They want to do some more videos and things like that. So we kind of threw in about an $8,000 amount in there to kind of see if we can figure out a way to support an ongoing from what it currently is right now. We haven't quite refined that yet with the chamber, so it may drop off depending on whether or not there's some buy-in. But we also identified some advertising in there that we could help out with in order to kind of build a more robust planning and development. So if you look at the grant program, if you're a community under 2,500, we'd actually be able to just fund employment for Patty and Carly, because that's for the populations under 2,500. But because we're over that 2,500, we have to focus on implementation, but we can also have the planning piece in there. So there is a bit of infrastructure component as well as the planning component to go forward, but be more project specific. So that's why it's outlined the way that it is. So our recommendation would be that we put in an application, but it should also allow us to plan for the next round of applications. So as you can see, there's one for $1 million for infrastructure. I did try to pull. That was first one. And then working towards what those next applications will look like as well, so that we can take advantage of this funding.
Any questions, comments?
Yeah,
Councilor Dugas?
yeah, through the mayor, to staff, with regards to the contract that we have with our active people in place right now, when does it end?
So we're currently set to end about December 31. But we did, because we received a little additional money throughout the program, we have a bit left over in order to kind of see us to finish a couple of the projects off in January. So I just wanted them to get finished on a lot of make sure we tie up all the loose ends at the end of the day. But we did end up receiving 3 additional months of grant revenue from ICE-T in order to support that. So we had budgeted that 6 months of that would come out of our budget, and that a year would come out of the ICE-T, but they funded an additional 3 months for us. So we've got a little bit to carry forward.
Now, was there a possibility that ICE-T was going to extend that? I know there was talk about it, but.
Yeah, and if it's okay, I'll just, so one of the things we know is gonna happen is there will be an extension to it. However, it will be based on the old growth forest. So housing will not be a component, same as the REDIP funding is not supposed to be used towards housing. Housing can be a small component, but it can't be a focus. And so a lot of our focus when we actually had applied for the the ICE-T funding was actually focused a lot on housing, because that was our biggest issue. It still is our biggest issue. And, but we have to change the focus to be forestry dependent. So what the old growth forest will do. And that's going to be coming down the pipe. And whether or not that's actually rolled into this REDIP, because there is actually a program that's actually addressing the old growth forest decision as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments, questions? So,
I'll move the recommendation.
thank you,
I'll
Councilor.
second that.
Thank you, Councilor Dugas. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, under current bylaws and resolutions, bylaw number 1155-2022, revenue anticipation borrowing for 2023 for first, second, and third reading. Would our finance officer like to speak to this?
This is pretty consistent with last year. There's an increase of 368,000. Last year was, the bylaw was for 4.148, and here 4.517. Based on your tax and fees.
Motion,
I'll make the motion.
Council Dorler?
This is legislative.
Yes, and it's just anticipation, so it's,
Not borrowing anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Seconded by Council Robertson. All in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you. So we have no pending bylaws. So council reports, Councilor Smith? Did I miss something?
No, I thought the next slide.
Next, Councilor Smith.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. November 23rd, attended the FinTech meeting along with Councillor Dugas. They were have rebranded. They're now 4VI. So we had talked a little bit about that, how interestingly things have shifted from how things were before. They were dealing with like millions of dollars for marketing, and now that's really shifted, and they have to be more specific with their marketing and some really great things they have going forward too about sustainability and doing carbon studies, coaching sustainability. It's kind of neat how any surplus they're actually putting back into the 4VI as well. Like it's kind of neat how they have things set up. Working on biosphere certification. It's some kind of cool stuff coming down the pipe, I think, from them. And then we reviewed the plan for upcoming year. December 7th, attended the Port Hardy Heritage Society. They didn't have a quorum, but we just were reviewing things for the future for budgeting, looking at grants, exhibits, conferences, and planning for next year. And then December 12th, just attended the Finance Committee, so short and sweet.
Thank you. Councilor Tidbury?
I'm here. Okay, I attended the regional tourism, and we've run into a little problem, and I think I might have spoke about this before. It's about the signage down by Peter Lake there. Well, apparently the Ministry of Transportation don't like the word North Island. And so what we're asking each community to do is send a letter to the Ministry of Transportation saying, you know, why not? We have in this area here, we're not only Mount Waddington, we're also got quite a number of territory areas in this area. So by calling it Mount Waddington doesn't make no sense. But we are the North Island, and so I'd like a letter of support sent to the Minister of Transportation. And just for your information, I don't know if you noticed the little sun signs that there's only a few in this area now, but on the bottom of those, it says North Island. So, North Island, I can't see why they can't use it. So that's on that one. I attended the seniors meeting, and as you gathered, we're very active. We did a sale this month, as well as and we've got our Christmas dinner on the 18th, and after that we'll be closed until the new year. And I think I mentioned in the last report about the executive we voted on the executive and we got the full executive now. I attended the VIMWAG meeting again, very interesting. I enjoy that meeting immensely. We went over a number of things. I attended the airport tabletop exercise out at the airport. I would have liked to have seen the regional district involved in that, especially the fire departments and because we would, if we had a major incident out there, all these individuals would be contacted to assist in the evacuation of people. And they're going to have a major exercise in July of 23. Okay, I did the emergency regional emergency in Port McNeill, and this is where I got my cold from.
We blame
It was in the community hall, and it was freezing. And good attendance by everybody. It's generally a great meeting. The next meeting will be in Port Hardy, and we generally have that in the Civic Center. I told you about the Seniors Craft Fair. I did the Finance Committee meeting. And then, of course, council tonight. So I'm still pretty busy in the community, and we'll be setting. I'm in the process of setting up for the Rotary sing along.
Thank you, Councillor Tidbury. Councillor Texmo?
Yeah, so a few things to report on for myself. One of the first items is I've been spending a lot of time reading the council handbook and coming up to date with a lot of the council bylaw procedures, how the decision making is made, lots of things. I have so much to learn. It's been a lot, but it's good, and anytime I need help, Heather's been amazing, so it's great anytime I have questions. So I'm doing that. I'm working on a meeting. We've been trying to get together. I've been trying to get together with Shane from mental health to just basically get a meeting and just kind of discuss in detail for me to get to learn a little bit more from their perspective on things that are the inner workings and stuff. Because a lot of these things, you know, you guys have been on council, you guys have seen a lot of these issues and been informed for, you know, quite some time. But and me coming on new, I need to really dig in and get up to speed. So I'm scheduling a meeting with Shane. We were supposed to meet last week, but of course everyone got sick. I'm sick, kids sick, everyone's sick. So we're trying to get together. So that's one big thing I'm looking forward to. And the next one is I'm also working on a meeting. And again, we were always supposed to have one, but of course sickness gets in the way, with Deputy Fire Chief Gavin Texmo and Brent Borg, and more than likely with John as well. Bring them along just to kind of sit down with them and discuss the emergency committee and all the workings with them, and kind of bring myself up to speed because I was unable to make the last meeting. So a few things I'm working on, just trying to catch up, basically get up to speed with what's going on, get more involved with the committees I am on, and learn my role as a counselor and be more effective.
Thank you, Councillor Texmo. Councillor Dugas.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. I was away there for a little bit, visiting my mother in Saskatchewan to go down and experience a winter with some snow and minus 29. So I'm glad to be home. We don't have to deal with all that cold weather here. Not that bad anyways. The North Island Sustainable Power Coalition study is just in its concluding point of where it's at right now. There's going to be there's some information that's been sent out to me. I'm sort of looking at it, gonna get back to the engineer, and then we're gonna have a meeting in first part of January with all the people that are involved with the coalition. And for those of you who don't know who that is, that's all the municipalities, regional district and indigenous nations in our region. They all sit on that group, and so we will talk about hopefully how we can move forward with that in the future. Yes, and I was also put on the board of the VINTAS, the Vancouver Island North Training and Attraction Society, and I was asked if I would be the chair of that committee, and nobody else stepped up, so I guess I got picked, and so I will be the chair of that group right now. And I'm really looking forward to working with them. One of the things that was very interesting, they talked about bringing together the North Island Community College with regards to, Donna Mary's on that anyways, but there's gonna be a committee that's gonna be setting up, talking about the business about extra training and educational part of it into that committee, so I think that's really exciting. One other thing that I've been involved with is the North Island Seniors Housing Foundation. And there's ongoing discussions with BC Housing, and because of our meeting down at UBCM, and we had an opportunity to meet with John McGowan, one of the members that was on that committee. I talked to him after that, and then we set up a Zoom meeting, and then the individual that's actually looking after the housing projects for BC Housing up here, Albert Lopez, we've had a couple opportunities, our group, to meet with him on Zoom and talk about our proposal moving forward. So I'm really excited about that. And we're also working with a number of different designers, developers and contractors in our area. And I picked our corporate development services and everything else that he does for us in our community, Ross Blackwell, asking him some few questions with regards to our development, and he's given us a lot of great information. And some of the designs that we've looked at moving forward was brought to us by Ross. So thank you very much, Ross, for that. So that's my update. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dorward.
Exactly. I was away for the last council meeting, so some of the other councillors that attended this have reported on it, but I attended the Aquaculture Transition Engagement Plan. So this is where Department of Fisheries and Oceans, they've now engaged on the Aquaculture Transition Plan with First Nations with aquaculture in their territories, First Nations without aquaculture in their territories, as well as industry, local government, and environmental groups. Largely, they've heard a solid reiteration of expected views. So. But they also said DFO's transition plan away from open pen aquaculture is expected to be ready by June this year. The goal is to minimize, or if possible, eliminate interactions between farmed and wild fish. So long as that goal is satisfied, DFO, and I wrote this down during the meeting, word for word. So long as that goal is satisfied, DFO won't necessarily be pulling pens out of the water. It will be a blueprint of where DFO wants to go with this together. So, and some of you may have read in the news that a group from the called GNN went over to Norway, and I had a brief chat with one of them, and they said like the technology that they have over there, it's amazing and holds lots of promise for fitting in with what DFO seems to be looking for. So I think that's tentatively positive news for our area. You know, anyway. Yeah, that's good. I also did a shift at Salvation Army Kettle. I really like doing it. And I bring my music and I play it quite loudly and kind of dance from afar with some of the people hanging about. And it's quite fun. I really enjoy it. That's about it for me.
Thank you. Councillor Robertson.
Thanks. I was doing different things. I was involved with VINWAG. VINWAG is as well is changing, migrating from Canadian standard certification to a different organization group that's being put together now. So it is actually fairly large to go from a government organization for their certification to one that, as my understanding, is industry funded. So that is fairly significant in what's happening with them. I was also at a few community futures meetings. I was active with the Vancouver Island Regional Library, different meetings and planning for next year. And also beginning the budgeting process with finance.
Councillor Robertson. So just a few things that I've been involved with. I did the open pen update with Councillor Dorwood. It was all on Zoom and there was a lot of people on on the meeting and I found that they seemed very open to the comments that were made by the people on the Zoom meeting. It was not just, it was all political people and it was, they were very receptive. So we'll see what happens and yes. I've had a number of calls about the hospital and what's happening with the hospital and advocating for our community, but just so people are aware that right now the ER is open, but come January, it probably will be closing again. They still don't have a full complement of doctors. They still don't have a full complement of nurses. One of the doctors that's here has to go for some medical reasons for them, so they'll be away. So I'm anticipating it's going to be a while before we get back to normal and we can breathe this sigh of relief. So just to be aware that it's not ending anytime soon, unfortunately. We had a brown, our deputy mayor and myself had a brown bag meeting this afternoon with business representatives from the downtown area and I thought it went fairly well with a number of different ideas and we will stay in touch with them and they expressed some of their concerns and they're not concerns that we haven't heard before, but it's good to hear the concerns again and they have different ideas that if we get the situation table going or the economic diversification funding, that we can push forward some of their ideas or come up with other ideas. And yeah, I attended a number of Christmas bazaars in the community and the seniors one was a lot of fun and so it was good. So this is our last meeting before or until January. So just wish everybody Merry Christmas. Yeah.
Peaceful holiday.
And a peaceful holiday. Yeah. So moving on, information and announcements. The municipal hall will be closed from December 26th to January 2nd. Then we have meetings coming up January 10th and 11th. Any errors, anything that should be included on there?
Just one thing, there'll be a vetting camera on the 9th for the council orientation.
Right, being camera on January 9th for council orientation. And hopefully pictures. So
We can get it arranged.
if we can get it arranged.
If not, we might just take the photos, see what happens.
And so we do have the notice of in camera on the January 9th. Motion to adjourn. Councilor Robertson. Thank you. All right.